pure experiences.
Hello everyone.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening and welcome to the meeting number 22 of our group, Pure Experiences. So let's start with two aspects of presence. Now, last meeting we saw that there is something and it appears to us, it is seen as experience. Whatever happens is seen as an experience. We say that we are experiencing it. Then we conclude, only after experiencing it we can conclude that there is something. And that event that results in this conclusion is, we call it as experience. An experience is a happening, and a happening in all that is happening in the presence itself. An experience is not something which is off presence, it is in presence. The experience happens in presence. The presence includes the experience of itself. Now, we have seen that the presence is, there cannot be anything else. And if we reflect on it, if we contemplate this, you'll find that the nothingness, the opposite of the presence, cannot be. Even if you can, for a while, if you can, try to imagine the nothingness, you will find that a person, somebody who is imagining it will be needed. And if you can even entertain that idea that there can be nothingness, somebody who is entertaining it will be needed. Now, no matter what you do, you will find that nothingness is just a concept. It is a fantasy. It cannot be there. Even if you imagine it, even if you consider its possibility, it cannot be there. It cannot be established by any means of gaining knowledge. It won't be self-evident. It won't be direct experience. It won't satisfy any criteria of the truth. And we are then forced to conclude that there is something, and we give it a name, and the name is presence. And once you conclude that, you'll find that it satisfies all the criteria of the truth, which are: it is self-evident, it is logical, it is it can be repeated, it is repeatable, and it holds no matter what. So this is what we learned in the last meeting, that there is presence, there is something, and we did not attempt to know what there is, because the knowing happens through mind, and the mechanism of knowing is dividing, and you cannot divide presence into anything. So all divisions are artificial. So even though we call it as knowledge, what we are doing is we are artificially dividing something which is a whole, which is just present. And as soon as we start our knowledge gaining process, we are starting our ignorance accumulating process also. So we have a choice, we can stop there and just be what is. And we have this other choice also. We can go ahead and divide it up, use our mind and find out what it is like, what is nature, what is it doing, what is happening in it. And the process of gaining knowledge starts if you take the second choice. But there is no compulsion to do that. Actually, it is not compulsory to know. There is something, and that is all. That is the most natural state of the mind. And a very wise man will stay there and will not even try to attempt to know anything else after that. I was reading the Ashtavakra Gita because I am planning to build an app on the Ashtavakra Gita. I noticed that he points out to the very same thing. He says that a wise man is not concerned with knowledge at all. He doesn't want to know. He simply is. He knows what is, and that's what remains. So But we are on the path of knowledge, so let us try to know, because it is interesting. And till we reach that state where even the knowledge becomes redundant, useless, or is of no consequence, till we reach that state, it is it is desirable to know something. We are not there yet, so let us wait for it. And while waiting, use our time to gain some knowledge, to know something. At least remove a minimal amount of ignorance to make our lives and our seeking as comfortable as possible, as painless and free of suffering as possible. So the cause of suffering is ignorance, and the cure is knowledge. So as long as there is suffering, there is attachment, there is distraction, there are desires, it is recommended that we remove it using the knowledge. So let us leave the presence and divide it up. So you will find that it is really impossible to imagine what presence is, because as soon as you imagine it becomes an experience. You eventually end up in with two instead of one. So what are these two? These two are the experience and the experiencer. So as soon as you ask the question, what is, the answer is presented to you as an experience. And then the mind reflects back and says that I am experiencing it. And so the experiencer is born. I was saying that whenever we try to know anything about presence, it divides into two and appears an experience. And when the mind flips from the experience to the experiencer, it says that it is the I who is experiencing. The mind creates an I and makes it its knowledge that I am experiencing. So actually the division is made by the mind. There is, in reality, there is no division. From the perspective of the mind, there are two. And whatever is experienced is on one side of the mind, and the experiencer is on the other side of the mind. And funny thing is, the mind itself is the experience. So what happens is, you experience through the mind and then flip your attention using the mind towards the experiencer, and then go back to the mind and say, yes, there is an experiencer who is experiencing. If you remove the mind from the scene, all there is left is an act of experiencing. There is no experience, and there is no experiencer, but there is something. And I have a name for it. I just call it experiencing, the act of experiencing without the experience or the experiencer. Now, it looks kind of theoretical, so what I suggest is, in your free time or practice time, you try to do that. You try to actually do this experiment. Try to break up what is into two, and then take the mind out of it. You can do it just by pretending that there is no mind. Now what's left? And you will arrive at that state where you are simply experiencing. You are not dividing. So it lasts for a few seconds, that's all. But that's all we need to know, that it is the mind who is doing the division. The presence is seen as two faces of a coin. One of the faces is the experience, one of the other face is the experiencer. We have already divided whatever is into four parts: the world, the body, the mind, and the consciousness. So whatever is not consciousness, whatever is not experiencer, becomes the experience automatically. So the mind will say, okay, I am also experience, but I am also the experiencer. And it is kind of paradoxical, because the mind cannot understand this. The mind cannot understand how can it be two while being the one. So it actually gives up, and when it gives up, it is removed from the process, and only thing that remains is experiencing. So you can try doing that also. Check what is the experience, and check where is the experiencer, and then check who are you. Are you the mind, or are you the consciousness? So as soon as you try to know that, you will find that the mind has disappeared, because it was assuming that I am experiencing, and as soon as you question it, the mind disappears, because it finds itself as an experience, and then it stops. So a very interesting practice to do, and you can try it. So there is another way to know that the experience and the experiencer are one and the same thing. You must have noticed that the experience never appears alone. It never happens that the experience is there and the experiencer is absent. And it never happens that the experiencer is there and the experience is absent. Now, this is somewhat confusing, because some people will say that in special states of mind, there will be only the experiencer, and there won't be any experience. But no. What happens in those states, the mind is not there, so there is only experiencing. So that's why I'm introducing this word experiencing, which I have not done that in the last meeting on this topic. So this is a new thing I'm suggesting here. So try to go into this state of experiencing and see it for yourself, that they are one. So you will be very, very confidently, you will be able to say that the experiencer also never exists without any experience. Because if you say there is only experiencer, then what is it experiencing actually? Because experiencer is the one who is experiencing. So it cannot happen by definition that the experiencer disappears. What disappears is the mind, and the division is gone. And so it makes no sense to talk about the experience or the experiencing. Now this may sound a little bit too technical and philosophical, so if you have any doubts or any questions, anytime you can ask me. It is not necessary to remain in this state of experiencing for more than a few seconds, because no knowledge is gained in that state. The knowledge that this is enough. I mean, we need not spend our whole lives with a mind that is inactive. You need to make it inactive only for a while, till you get the glimpse, and then you're back to the duality, back to the experience and the experiencing. That is a more interesting state than simply experiencing, because the experiencing will not lead to any knowledge at all. The knowledge lies in the domain of the mind, and so if the mind is not there, there is no knowledge. So if you are interested, you can stay there more, because it is blissful, because there is no mind, so there is no duality, there is no happiness, and there is no suffering, there is no desire, nothing is to be achieved, and the result is peace. Even if the mind comes back, it comes back with a sense of peace. So that's why that's what we call as meditation or samadhi, nirvikalp samadhi. Last time I said that it is useless. It's not. It is not really useless. It is. I don't remember where I said it. Probably last time. So it is not really useless. It is useful to gain that experience. That yes, the natural state of being is nirvikalp samadhi. Mind creates an unnatural state of duality. It creates an experience, and it creates an experiencer. So when your goal is to gain knowledge, you divide it up. If your goal is to rise above the mind, you combine them. It's very simple. So right now we are trying to know. So let us divide it into the experience and the experiencer. Sorry. So let us take a look at the experiencer first. It appears as nothingness. It appears as if there is nothing that is experiencing. The experiencer has no body. The experiencer has no mind. The experiencer has no form, shape, nothing. You cannot place the experiencer in the category of the world, that is objects, or of the body, because body is also an object. Or you cannot place it in the category of the mind also, because mind is also experienced. So what is the experiencer then? You can conveniently say and confidently say whatever cannot be experienced is the experiencer. This becomes the definition of the experiencer. So if you can experience it, if there is something and you can experience it, you can very confidently say that it is not the experiencer, it is the experience. So this is a way to define the experiencer, whatever, that which cannot be experienced, that which is the ground of the experience, that which is the sink of the experience, is the experiencer. It appears as nothingness to the mind. Why? Because mind is the way the mind knows anything is via experience, isn't it? So if there is something which cannot be experienced, what is it going to appear to mind as? It is going to appear to the mind as not existing. Actually, if you ask an ordinary person who has never heard these concepts, who has never been initiated, who has never been never seen, never heard this concept of consciousness or experiencer, or this field that is into which all the experience is going, then you will hear that person saying that, oh no, there is no such thing as experiencer. All there is mind, and all there is matter. They will go one step ahead and say that even the mind cannot be established. It's not objective. So and whatever it is a product of the matter, which is organized nicely in the form of body and brain. We can see it, we can study it. So mind is nothing but events in matter. So it is kind of difficult for the mind to grasp what the experiencer is, because it is never seen as an object, never seen as a thought, never seen as a memory or imagination or emotion or feeling, nothing. Go to the finest of your experience, the most refined kind of perception or experience that you ever had, and the experiencer is more refined than that. The experiencer is even beyond that. Those who are very, very deep into ignorance, that is, they don't know their true nature, or they don't know what they are actually, they are going to say, and rightly, because they cannot say it, so they are right in saying there is no experiencer, there is no consciousness, there is no self. And some of them will say there is no mind also, it is just a process in the brain. So those who are on the path of knowledge can clearly see it, that the first thing there appears is the experiencer. The other things appear after that. So first thing that appears is experiencer, which appears as nothingness. And the second thing that appears is the mind, who is knowing this, the thing that is knowing this. And the third thing that appears is the body and the world. This is the situation from the point of view of a seeker, from the point of view of a person who knows, from the point of view of an ignorant person who has never received any kind of teaching. All that appears to that person is the world and the body. That's all that appears. And mind becomes something that is I. The mind appears as the person. And most people won't take the trouble of studying what it is. They just assume that the body is them. and the body is thinking, because what is I? I is the body. And it becomes really difficult to even explain to such a person. I mean, explain to that person that there is something beyond the body, there is something before the body. Some people can, go up to the mind and acknowledge or recognize or know. They have a direct experience of the mind. That's all, and that's where they stop. There is nothing beyond them for that person, and it does not depend on the intelligence or education of the person. It depends on absence of beliefs. So if somebody very firmly believes in this idea that the I they are so used to is just the body, or maybe it's just the mind, then they will find it very, very difficult to get to the state of recognizing or acknowledging the experiencer, because it is the mind that steps in between that kind of knowledge. The mind itself becomes the resistance. The mind itself becomes the wall between this knowledge of the experiencer and the mind. It stands between these two. So how is it possible that some of us are able to see this while others are not? I was very surprised, because my knowledge was that since childhood I could see that there is an experiencer, and I thought that everybody knows about this. But when I grew up, I saw people naming it as something else. They named it as soul. They named it as Atma, and they said the body has it, and when you die it leaves the body. I encountered all kinds of beliefs, and one day I encountered this belief that there is no such thing. There is just matter, and there is just there is an organ in the body. It's called brain, and it does all things that the perception, the thinking, and all, and case closed. So I was like that for many, many years, and obviously this kind of belief is not very satisfactory, and you question it. Once you become mature enough, and once you gain, once you have suffered a little bit, and once you have become dissatisfied with what you know, then the door opens up, then the mind opens up, and the mind wants to investigate more. And this is how seeking begins. This is how the journey towards knowledge begins. This is how we step on the path of knowledge. Before that, the ignorance is so deep that we don't even question it. We don't even know enough to question it. So there is presence to the mind. It appears as two. It appears as experience, and it appears as the experiencer. Actually, I got distracted. I was telling you that there is a way to find that these two are just one. The experience and the experiencer are one. And you must have noticed that they never appear separately. They always appear together. Whenever there is experience, there is experiencer. And whenever there is the experiencer, there is an experience. It is experiencing something. So consciousness is always a consciousness of something. And what is it of? It is of an experience. It is of something, an object, a thought, a body, anything that can be experienced. So you will get a hint there. Why is it that they are always together? Why can't the mind separate them totally? Why one must appear when the other is there? Now, the definition of separation is that, if two objects are separate, let us say objects are separate, then the one must exist without the other. In total absence of the second object, the first object can be seen. And the second object must be seen in the total absence of the first object. Now, this never happens when you take the case of experience and the experiencer. Now you wonder, why is that? They are not satisfying the definition of separation. which is a reasonable definition. If you have some other definition of separation, like there is a space between things, then you will find that is not a satisfying definition. You will never find separation. How are you going to separate it? Where are you going to put the space in between them? Is there a space between the experience and the experiencer? Right now, right here, you can take a look at your experience. Take a look at your experience right now, right here, and let me know if there is a space between the two. How does that space appear? How many meters? How many kilometers? How many? Is it a different kind of space? You will not find any answers. And if you think that maybe there is no space, there is time. Probably the experience happens after a little bit after the experience is there. Try to find the time delay between the experience and the experiencer. How much gap is there between the two happenings? Between knowing that there is an experience and between knowing that there is an experiencer. So you will, if you do it right now also, you will find there is no time gap, there is no space, there is no separation, there is no two-ness. You will be forced to conclude that. Mind usually, when it takes a look at the experience and the experiencer, it automatically assumes there are two. Why does it do that? It's kind of conditioning, you see. When it flips the attention from the experience to the experiencer, what is it going to conclude? It is going to conclude that, first I saw the experience, second I saw the experiencer. Oh, there are two. And this is the conditioning of the mind. This is the ignorance of the mind. So how to get rid of this ignorance? You take a closer look. You evaluate it. You question it. And there is no possibility of questioning or even looking at it if nobody has told you this before. I mean, it never happened to me spontaneously. I never questioned it. Only when I heard this teaching, they are not two, they're just one, it's oneness. And the teaching of Advait or non-dual philosophy, that even though everything appears as two, it is just one. And even after I heard the teaching, I never understood. Only when I started introspecting, only when I paid attention, only when I questioned it, I came to this way of realizing that there are actually no two. So, is it an experience? Clearly, it is not an experience. It is a logical conclusion. Can there be an experience? Yes, but there won't be any knowledge. That is why, I call it as the ultimate truth, because truth belongs to the domain of knowledge. True and false belongs in the domain of mind, and the non-dual is beyond mind. So then the thing that is one, the thing that I am calling as presence, cannot be a subject matter of knowledge. You cannot gain any knowledge there. So can we say that it is true that there is only oneness? Or can we say that it is false? We cannot say anything actually. So that is why sometimes I say that the truth stops at duality, and the most basic form of duality is the experience and the experiencer. So that becomes the ultimate truth. That can be established, that can be known, that can be analyzed by the mind, and mind can gather the evidence for that. Anything beyond that is beyond mind. So this was a small, brief discussion on the experience and the experiencer. The lesson here is, that although they are two, although they appear as two, they are actually one. And the mind has a way to know this. We just now did that. So in your free time, whenever you are contemplating, whenever you are introspecting, question the duality, question the division of experience and the experiencer. If you question it, if you try to make sense of it, you will find that it doesn't make sense. There is only one. And there are 2 or 3 ways to do that, Find the separation, find the gap. Try to isolate the experience from the experiencer. Try to isolate the experiencer from everything else, and everything will fail. So, and you will conclude that the division is artificial, even though there is a division. And you will conclude that it is an illusion that anything exists apart from the experiencer. Or it is an illusion that anything, even the experiencer exists apart from experiencing. Experiencing with capital E. That is what is. That is what is happening. The rest is all illusion. Being is happening. So it is kind of a difficult subject. I know it is. I became really airy-fairy, theoretical, philosophical
But
here.
ultimately, when a seeker has gained so much knowledge, this is where a seeker is going to go, knowing that there are no two, there's just one. That there is, that duality is just happening here, but the truth is there is no duality, there's just one.
There is this realization that there is no two, and the mind stops here. Mind does not go beyond this. There is a reason that they call it as non-dual instead of oneness or something like that. Singular, monism. There is a reason our ancient seers and sages, they called it Advait and not as oneness. Why? Because mind stops there at no two. It cannot say more than that. But there is a realization that no, the two is an illusion. It is not possible to take a seeker there directly. You need to go through all the circus of mind first. Remove a little bit of ignorance first, and put the seeker into the state where the mind can go away for a while. To stop the mind, common language we say, stop the mind, stop thought, and examine what is. What happens when you stop the mind actually? What is the experience like? The thing is, there is no experience actually. When the mind comes back from this state, it will say, oh, there was experiencing, there was nothing else. And it will flicker very wildly, and even for a split second, if you can stay in the state of experiencing, that is enough, because it is very, very evident. It is very, very strong. You will have no doubts that there is just experiencing, and the mind was gone for a while, and when it came back, it called it as oneness. So was that your question? Actually, I lost your question.
I suppose so, yes. I was just saying that even when you were saying a while ago about the experience and the experience, that one can't happen without the other, that in itself shows that there is just one.
Yes, exactly. That is the easiest way, that is more easier than stopping the mind, because mind never stops actually. It can go into a different state, that's all it will allow us. And without mind...
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to add that we've established before that experiences happen seamlessly. You can hardly see the beginning of one and the end of the other.
That's right. That's right. If you can divide the experiences into groups, but you cannot say that one experience starts and the other ends, and it ends and the other starts. There are no chunks of experiences. There is one continuous thing, and that also points to the oneness. Because if there are two, then then one must be able to stop in order to exist. independently of the other.
Pure experiences.
You were listening to Pure Experiences by Tharun Pradhan. For more, please visit pureexperiences.blogspot.in.